Thinking about moving to Chicago but not sure if it's the right fit for you? Chicago has a lot to offer, but not without its downsides too. In this video, I'm going to cover the pros and the cons to living in Chicago. This is coming from someone who's lived here for 25 years and helped many people like yourself make that move. My name's Sam Sharp. I've been a mortgage lender for almost 23 years now, and I've helped over 10,000 people buy a home, many of those homes in the Chicagoland area. I want to make videos that help people understand what their financing options look like, what real estate can hold, and also, is Chicago, among other cities, the right fit for you? Let's kick things off with one of the biggest advantages of living in Chicago, which is its incredible walkability. Why is walkability important? Besides the fact that's how you get from one place to the next, that's going to make or break the difference in other economic factors. When you're living in a city, it can be expensive. Parking, for example, has gone through the roof. So when you're living in a city that has higher walkability, now you can get to school for your children. You can get to restaurants, the nightlife. All the amenities and the things that you want that come with that exciting city life, Chicago's got the best of that. And I think what's really great is that while you're walking, all the things to look at. If you've walked along the lake, it's amazing. When you're walking along the Riverwalk, this is something that you have to see, even if you're just visiting. But then also the architecture. Chicago's so well known for so many beautiful buildings. Now let's remember how important walking will be once you embrace the amazing food scene in Chicago. I've got to tell you, not only can you walk to some of these restaurants, but you're probably going to have to walk afterwards, because I think Chicago has one of the best restaurant scenes in the entire world. And I'm sorry, New York, I know you take place as one of those number ones, but for me, it's always Chicago. All right, I'm curious. What's your favorite kind of food? Comment below and I'll respond with some of the best spots that you can find in Chicago. But for now, let's get back to the video. And I think when it comes to the food, it's really going to depend on what you're into, right? Do you want pizza? Are you going to Illuminati's versus Giordano's? I know there's some people who will cringe when I say those names. Personally, I love them. If you want fancy food, we have Michelin stars across the board. The Alinea Group has come up with so many different concepts. I like this. I think it's great for the right occasion, but also keep in mind the diversity. Within the neighborhoods, there's so many great spots. There's a place, Osteria Langhe. I have to tell you, this is one of those hidden gems. It's in the Logan Square area. And it's one of those places where when you're in Italy, you walk through a neighborhood and you're like, wow, if I lived here, I would come here all the time. Well, Chicago's full of these types of spots, so you have to check it out. In addition to the diverse food scene, would be the diversity within the neighborhoods. When I moved to Chicago, that was one of the things that I loved the most. When you go from one neighborhood to the next, you'll find that cultures really embrace their heritage, right? So when you find, for example, Greeks, my wife's Greek, so it's wonderful. You have a Greek town and people actually speak Greek. When you go into neighborhoods where there's restaurants that focus on Polish cuisine, well, guess what? The families actually speak Polish. So you're not just getting the food that comes along with this, but you're getting that cultural inclusion, which is amazing. I think that Chicago has a very culturally rich and diverse scene. So it's easy for you to find out, where do you want to live? What kind of feeling are you looking for? And this is something you can't find in a lot of other cities. Now, in addition to this type of diversity, there's also the diversity in lifestyle. So you can find anything from the bustle of the streets, living in the Loop and River North areas, hot nightlife, different things that you're looking for, but you can also get back and get more of like a suburban feel in some of the quieter neighborhoods. Chicago has everything you're looking for based on the type of lifestyle you're living. Do you have kids? Do you need to be closer to the schools? Are you in a position where maybe you're on the opposite side of that, but you have, kids called our four-legged furry friends. So you need to be in a neighborhood that has lots of amenities for other pet owners. Chicago really does have it all. This brings me to the next pro, which is the endless amount of activities that we have when you're living in Chicago. Sports fans, we've got it covered. If you're a South Sider, you're on the White Sox. Otherwise, Chicago Cubs, I think they hold a place in everyone's heart. The Chicago Blackhawks, if you're into hockey, I'm a personal fan. But you can also check out the football scene with the Chicago Bears. Outside of that, think about the amazing architecture. A lot of people know the Sears Tower. It's the Willis Tower now. It'll always be the Sears Tower to me. But when you're going through, you can climb up to one of the tallest buildings in the world and actually take a look out across the city. We also have the Chicago Art Institute, the Field Museum, the Planetarium, an aquarium, right? Shed's Aquarium. We have so many great places. And these are all things that you can do with your family. And when you're going out on the weekends, or if you're going out with your friends, you're going to find a lot of things to do. Maybe you want to go for the outdoor lifestyle. So Chicago has some great beaches. A lot of people don't realize this, but with all the lakefront coverage on Lake Michigan, there's some really cool beaches, from like social scenes on North Avenue Beach all the way up to Montrose Beach, again, where you can find more pet-friendly options. And if you're into the outdoor lifestyle, you've got to check out the boating scene, right? Chicago is famous for some of its on-the-water parties. So if that's what you're into, check out the Playpen. There's some really great options there. Otherwise, just cruising along the coast scene, I think, is something that a lot of people find enjoyable. Now, I have to tell you, I know a lot of people think of the music scene in Chicago and they think of Chicago blues, which is great. I love the blues and I think it's phenomenal. But one of the things, as a musician myself, that I came to fall in love with in this city is the diversity within that music scene in lots of the little side pocket spots. I mean, you can find everything from like the Bottom Lounge, which has a lot of metal, but there's the iconic Chicago Metro, which gets through a ton of acts, which is really great. I think you get to see musicians that you normally would look at in these huge venues in a much more intimate setting. So Chicago has a really great scene for getting to see great music in a much smaller setting with the neighborhood feel. All right, so it's obvious I love the city. There's a lot of pros here that you can see on why other people love the city and why people call this their home. It wouldn't be really fair for me not to, play both sides of this. So there are some things that other people might see as a con, right? People love that side. They want to see,
okay, this is all the good, but what about the bad?
So we have to talk about some of the things that you may want to watch out for. First, parking. It's the bane of my existence. Not only is it incredibly expensive, but it can be difficult to find. Now, there are ways around that. There's some great apps through Spot Hero and going through and finding ways to cultivate that system, but I can't not bring up parking when I think of the downside to Chicago. And what you have to be careful with when it comes to parking are the tickets. They are relentless. They will get you. Not only is it expensive to park somewhere, but when you get a ticket, they add up quickly. And if you forget about that meter or you park illegally, you'd be surprised how quickly they stack up. No one wants to walk up and find this thick stack of orange envelopes on their front windshield. Second, and right in line with parking, is the traffic. Unfortunately, it's a great city, right? It's very busy, a lot going on here, a lot of places to go and a lot of people going there. So you can get caught in traffic at 1:30 in the morning on the highway. It's got to be one of the most frustrating things that's happened to me more than a few times. You have to plan right. So when you're going to be going from point A to B, you need to know the time of day, where you're going and what it takes. There's a joke in Chicago that it's 20 minutes to anywhere from somewhere in Chicago to somewhere else in Chicago. And that seems to only be getting longer as the time goes on. And I think some of the peak hours to be careful besides your normal rush hour time, the evening times around sometimes, believe it or not, 6 to 8 p.m. because there's a lot of people going out to restaurants. There's a lot of people going out to enjoy all the wonderful things we have to offer in the city. So don't just assume that people are commuting to and from work. There's a lot more going on outside of this. And the third con, I'm sure this is no surprise to those of you who have been to the Midwest, but it's the harsh winter. I grew up in Colorado originally. I've got to tell you, I'm a cold weather kid. I love the snow. I prefer to have something to do in the snow, such as mountains to go down. But one thing I noticed when I moved to Chicago, that humidity combined with the cold weather, it gets gets under your skin. It gets into the bones. So make sure you dress warm. That's the one thing I'll tell you. The thing that I tell my kids is there's no such thing as weather that's too cold. There's just dressing unprepared. So make sure you invest in a really good coat before you move here. All right, we've talked about what I think are some of the obvious with the weather and talking about parking and traffic. You hear this about a lot of cities. One thing you may not hear is about the high property taxes. So you got to think about this from an economic perspective. When you're living in the city, not only is it expensive, but Chicago has the second highest taxes in the country. So you've got to make sure you take that into account when you're looking at your budget. Buy a home, this is going to be a major factor of your payment. And some people fail to look into this when they first make that move. All right. And one of the last things I have to mention, Chicago's famous for, think of the movies you see here, right? Al Capone. We look at gangsters. Chicago's well known for being politically corrupt. I don't know how else to put it. We see this on a day-to-day basis, and there's a lot of this that still exists till this day and flourishes, if you will. So I think some people have a real problem with the politics in the city. That's something that's up to you to decide, but you can't have both, right? You can't have glorify that gangster lifestyle without understanding how that gangster lifestyle comes through in your day-to-day. Now, that said, despite the backlash that Chicago receives for its politics, there are some great things that happen within that system that I have to mention, especially for homeowners. We have amazing products that go through to help people with affordable housing. These are grants for homeowners for money to put down. These are programs that allow you to receive what's called a mortgage credit certificate. So you can actually receive a refund for some of the interest you pay back on your loan every year. So there are some really strong people focused on strong initiatives that can help when you're looking to buy a home. So those are some of the pros and cons that you want to consider when living in Chicago. Hearing that, taking this all in, please let us know. Comment below. I want to hear from you. Do you think Chicago is the right city for you? And remember some of the pros that we covered: walkability, the food, the diversity, and the ability to find what you're looking for within all the different neighborhoods. But is that enough to trudge through those winters? Do you want to be walking in the snow? Is that enough to make sure that you're comfortable with the cost of parking and getting those tickets? I don't know. It's something that only you can decide. And if it's even crossed your mind about maybe moving to Chicago, or maybe you live here already and you're thinking about moving somewhere else within the city, and you have questions, maybe you want to know about some of those programs or how those property taxes would impact your monthly payment, please reach out. There's a link below so you can schedule a call to talk to me and my team so I can help you figure out if Chicago is the right fit.